Barbara and I got married. We started operating a farm, and we did that. We're full-time farmers for 20 years. And we just got the farm to where it was really doing well and was being profitable and successful. And I got this idea to run for the state legislature. Well, I did 6 years in the House, but instead of going back to the farm, I got a chance to run for the Senate then. And so I went to the Senate and stayed there for 24 years. So that what I had anticipated being a 6 or an 8 year kind of activity turned out to be a 30-year activity. And so now, after November 30, I will be resuming the farm that I left 30 years before. Never really left because we always lived here.
The term honorable really doesn't just come with being elected to office. It is about how the members conduct themselves while they're in office, both with their peers, with their staff, and most importantly with their constituents. And I can say without hesitation that Noah Wenger is one of the most honorable people that I have had the pleasure of working with during my time in the General Assembly. And I believe that that sentiment is shared by so many of the people around him.
He is the finest man I have ever met. He has high character and integrity, and he worked really, really hard for the people in his district.
We both came to the legislature the same year, back in 1976. We were both elected to the House of Representatives. So I got to know Noah very early on in our public careers. He wised up and moved to the Senate a lot quicker than I did, but he is the same gentleman today in 2006 that he was 30 years ago in 1976 when I first met him. He is just a marvelous, marvelous person.
I consider Noah Wenger, first of all, a very good friend, and secondly, my mentor. And Pennsylvania is truly recognized nationally as the #1 state in terms of farmland preservation, and recognized as the model program for other states when they're considering looking at a farmland preservation program. And Noah Wenger is to thank for all of that.
In his position as caucus chairman, he might come to me and say, I have a concern about this bill. Will you take the lead in caucus in addressing and pointing out the problems that this may cause for our farmers? So his leadership, and he was a valued member of our leadership here in the Senate caucus, and he's going to be very hard to replace.
Part of his district was part of mine, and vice versa. They interchanged over the years. But Noah is probably one of the most effective legislators I know. Noah's very low key, but he just gets things done, step by step by step, and he's had tremendous initiatives. Farmland preservation, Noah Wenger is responsible for that. The first workers' comp reform, major reform, Noah Wenger is behind it. But he's one of those types of individuals that he does it, he doesn't take any credit for it. It just gets done. So he's, to me, a tremendous individual to work with.
Senator Wenger really was truly a great gentleman that is in the Senate, and certainly hate to see him go. I think he provided what I'd say dignity and common sense and a spirit of working together that's just hard to find. The other area, and I tell my farmers back home that when there's an ag issue out there, if Senator Wenger's on the bill, it's a good ag bill.
I've sponsored much legislation and some farm legislation as well, but not without checking with Noah first. He was the man, and he was the go-to guy when it came to issues of farming, and he represented that constituency well, and was a solid member of our leadership. Absolutely, he was just one of the best people that you could ask for to represent that area.
People would come up and talk to me about these ag issues, and I always said, well, you know, it's easy for me because I just, you know, turn around and say, Noah, what do I do here? Noah was very solid in that, but just very solid in business issues, banking issues, economics. You know, he just understood how things worked. and always was in there being effective to make it work for the constituency that he had.
I always thought that he reminded me of Gary Cooper. He has that quiet, steady demeanor, but every once in a while something will surprise you, like that little funny sports car he drives to the Senate in the summertime that is bright colored and very sporty, or some of the little jokes he'll tell when we're having lunch or talking. I think of Acre. I think of some of the things he's done for the farmers markets and for promoting agricultural health and safety, the research into crop protection, flood insurance. I mean, the list just goes on and on.
He was always a stalwart, one person you could always count on, particularly in the caucus, which can get testy once in a while over some issues. And Senator Wenger's demeanor was something that was greatly admired by all the members.
Senator Wenger and I were two of the original appointees from Pennsylvania to the Chesapeake Bay Commission. And Noah served on it until he retired. He was chairman of the commission. He worked very, very hard. Senator Wenger was in the forefront always of cleaning up the agricultural community streams that run through the farms in Pennsylvania, many of them in his district, and eventually get into the Susquehanna River and the Chesapeake Bay.
Noah is not a show horse, but he's a workhorse. He's been very effective. He is certainly very solid. He's a man of his word. He really represents his district very, very well. He has meant a lot, not only to the agricultural community, but to all those in Pennsylvania who should respect politicians, because Noah Wenger was the finest.
Nice guys do win. He is so very decent. He listens carefully. He deliberates calmly, impartially, and when he acts strongly, decisively. Just the kind of a person that I would want to model myself after. He will do well with his family, with his community. He's just the fine man, one of the friends that all of us have had in the Senate of Pennsylvania.
I would like to be remembered as someone that cared about people, someone that cared about their own district, but cared for the whole state of Pennsylvania. And I've enjoyed it, working with all 50 senators all across the state of Pennsylvania, Democrat, Republican, and building an agenda that has made Pennsylvania a fine state. Doesn't mean there isn't room for improvement. We have some real challenges ahead of us, and that will be left for someone else because I will be retiring. But I've enjoyed the challenges that we've had over the last 30 years and the opportunity I had to work with some of the finest people that I've ever met.